Hi Scrubs, hope you're well. So this video is requested by Fluffy Bandit, so I'm going to be talking about the changes to BLUP that have taken place on the 7th of November. So I'm going to first off go through the new features, and then I'm going to show you some of the things that I have found from testing on Prepod. So this was something I became aware of a couple of weeks ago. Some testing I have been able to do, some I have not. So I will talk about both of those and sort of why. So what is BLUP? A little reminder for those who need it. These four letters may be slightly unclear to some of you, but they stand for the genetic indicator that plays a role in breeding horses in this game. BLUP is always somewhere between -100 and 100, where -100 is the minimum and 100 is the maximum BLUP a horse can reach. It is calculated based on the horse's training level and their three best skills, the number of competitions they've won, and their age. The BLUP of the horse's parents influences the foal's genetic potential and skills at birth, because the higher the parent's average skills is, the greater the chance the foal will have a higher genetic potential and innate skills. So this is how players increase the genetic potential of their breeds in order to get better horses. For more information about BLUP, genetic potential and horse breeding, you can take a look at the breeder's manual. So the new BLUP calculation, the game team as well as quite a few players have noticed that there has been a certain imbalance in the way BLUP is calculated, as well as in how the genetic potential and skills are passed down to foals. For example, training a horse in their best three skills counted more than age or wins when it came to calculating BLUP. On the other hand, as an average BLUP that was lower than 100 would still give you high enough genetic potential to so that reaching 100 BLUP loses interest for some people. We wanted to give back some value to the efforts of determined breeders who make the effort to get to 100 BLUP with their horses before breeding them, and thus ensure a greater reward for breeding quality. So here are the changes we've made. So the BLUP calculation. The better distribution of the three factors determining BLUP calculation. BLUP calculation is weighted towards training so that the wins and the horse's age count more. The BLUP calculation is less weighted towards training, so that wins and horse age count more. Win weighting, each win gives you more BLUP than the previous win. The 20th win is therefore the most significant. And age weighting, each month gives you more BLUP than the previous month, so you get to the maximum when the horse reaches 10. The horse's BLUP update after the first aging, so it might lower for some horses but increase for others. Fantastic, we could have just left that alone, but anyway. So a calculation of foal's genetic potential. The formula for calculating the foal's genetic potential has been adjusted to change the BLUP factor in the formula. If the parent's BLUP is below 100, the genetic potential gain is weaker than before, whereas if the parent's BLUP is 100, nothing changes. For instance, horses trained for 10 years old with 20 wins. Before, their BLUP would have been 100, and after, their BLUP would have been 100. Their genetic gain would have been 0.23, afterwards would have been 0.23. Now if they're trained horses with 5 years old and 0 wins, before you would have got 50 with a gain of 0.17, and after you would have got 8.28, and now you would get 0.07. So nothing changes for coverings that took place before the change. The genetic potential and innate skills of the foals stayed the same as they were expected to be when the covering took place. So this is the other adjustment they've made. You don't need to wait for your horses to be 3 years old. Now you can give them Morpheus arms or even an X-Pack at any time after they're born. So you can now save on some aging points. On the other hand, any horse over 30 years old now loses their Morpheus arms. Now, I'm not happy about that. That's something I really don't like, because as far as I'm concerned, if I put in the X-Pack or... Well, okay, not the X-Pack so much, because the X-Pack's obviously got the Philosopher's Stone. But if I'm putting a Morpheus arms on a horse that's not immortal, I think I should be able to keep the Morpheus arms on the horse. So I don't like that. I think that's one of those ones that if I could give it 0 stars, I would do this, but I can't, so I'm going to give it 1, and that's why, because if it was immortal horses, I'm fine with that, because it's always been that way. But with mortal horses, no, I'm not happy with that. So Morpheus arms item lets you age your horse as many times as you want without using agent points. The effect of the item stops at 30, so could have just left that alone and I would have been more than happy about that. Now, in terms of what I have managed to test, I went through and had a look at the BLUP calculation. Now, what I haven't been doing is I haven't been breeding the foals and trying to see what the genetic potential was going to work out as with the differences, because there was too much, there could have been stuff that was going to change on Prepod, and I thought there's no point in me trying to work this out right now. I'm going to probably work it out when it comes to the game, so I would say over the next couple of weeks and that, a lot of people are going to be testing to sort of see what works best for them, because some people like to breed from 100 and they'll never go lower than that. Some people will breed around 70, some servers were breeding as low as 30 BLUP. So it's totally dependent on you, and I think you need to figure out what works for you. So I'm not so much going to focus on that. I'm kind of going to more talk about the new BLUP calculation and kind of what's changed in a way that I think is easier to understand, because you can look at all the numbers and some of it will just go over your head. So that's what I'm going to look at now, and what I have figured out from this, from doing some tests on pre-pod and doing some tests prior to these changes as well. Okay, so one of the first things that I went and did was I got a Howrse on pre-pod that was 0 years old and 0 months, and I did the same on the regular game, and then I aged the Howrse, you know, about 2 months, right up to 10 years old. I didn't train it, I didn't do any bolding or anything like that, I didn't do any competition wins. I got them both to 10, and I took a note of their BLUP value every single 2-month increment to 10 years old. And then what I did after that was I started to train them in their skills and eventually bolded them. And I was taking note of the BLUP value the whole way through that. And then what I did was I started to work on wins. So I'd get 1 win, take note of the gain, get another win, take note of the gain, and just kept doing that. So this is what I figured out. So in terms of the old gain, what you used to get from aging was 40 BLUP. And what you used to get from training and bolding was 130, okay? And you got 30 from competition wins. Now, you might be wondering, why does it say 200 here whenever you're only going to 100 BLUP? That's because you're going from minus 100 to 100, so you're actually trying to get 200 points in total. So that's what these 200 points are talking about. So in terms of the new formula, age is actually worth twice as much as it used to be. Bolding and training has lost quite a lot of its influence, and competition wins have gone up a little bit. So you can kind of see it more accurately here, I guess. So you've got the old one where age counted for 20%, it now counts for 40% of it. Bolding and training used to count for 65%, it now only counts for 40%. And competition wins used to count for 15%, and they now count for 20%. Now you might be thinking that's not that big a difference, but it's the way it's been done. So this is the progression that I did. So I went along, as I said, and I took note of it at every 2-month increment. So you've got the new BLUP gain in pink, and you've got the old in black, okay? So I'm just going to go to this next one. So here we can see this is just where I was aging it, this bit in blue, okay? So here we're going from 0 years up to 10, okay? So you can see that the new gain, you're getting more. Like at first you seem to get more with the old system, but then it levels out and it's kind of pretty consistent, whereas now with the new one it sort of goes up a little bit more and more gradually. So then we get to the bolding and training stage. So this is where I trained the primary skill to full, I trained the first secondary, I then trained the next secondary skill, then did forest rides, mountain rides, and then I bolded it. So that was doing the competitions purely for the purpose of bolding, not winning any competitions. So for that, you can see that the old way used to be much, much, much higher. This stuff counted for a lot more than it now does. You can see that that's significantly gone down, but it's not very different. It's just that it's lower, okay, in terms of the pattern, because you can see a different pattern here, but here it's pretty much the same. It's just that it's now worth a lot less than it was. So then when we get to the competition wins, now this is what I found quite interesting. So here in the green section, you can see the competition wins. So in the old system, the first win you got gave you quite a lot of gain. And then it slowly started to decrease as it goes along. And you can sort of see then it gets lower and lower and lower and lower. So your 20th win actually gives you the lowest amount of gain in the old system. But in the new one, so in the pink here, you can see that the first win gives you very little gain. But as you go up and you gradually get more and more wins, you hit this peak at the 20th win. So you get more points for your 20th win than you get for your first. So you can sort of just see this again, you know, as I said, there without the colour in the background. So that is how it looks in that respect. And like, I have got the data here as well. And if anybody wants that, you know, you can, I don't mind if you screenshot that or anything, just credit me if you do. So this is the new values, okay, and the old values. So this is my actual values for this graph, okay. So you can see the gain that I'm getting, what that does to the BLUP, and so forth. This is just for aging, nothing else. So this goes from 0 to the 10 years, okay? So you can see at 10 years in the old system you're getting minus 60, and now you're getting minus 20. So when you move on to looking at the training and the competition wins, so in the new values here, we've trained the primary, and we've also done the olds and the secondaries. We've gone on, done forest rides and mountain rides, and then we've bolded. So if you had just aged the horse to 10 and you had bolded all of its 3 top skills, okay, in the new system you would get 60 BLUP, and in the old system you would have got 70, okay? So you might be thinking, well, how am I going to get 70 in the new system if I was to age it to 10 years old and to bold it? Well, then you're going to have to get around 8 wins, okay, for that, so you can just bring it over 70. Now, if you wanted to get it at a younger age, I'm going to talk about that now. So, if you got all 20 competition wins and you completed all the training, okay, you're going to be getting 40 points from the competition wins, and you're going to be getting 80 from all the training, okay. So that's going to give you 120, but you're going to need another 50 points to get this 170, which would, out of the 200, which would give you 70 BLUP. So we need to find those 50 points. So if I just go back here, you can actually see it here. So the youngest you could get, okay, if you were trying to use those 20 wins along with the training, is going to be 7 years and 4 months old, okay? So you will have already got your 50 points there, and then you just add on your following 40 points, and then you're following 80 from training, and that will give you your 70 BLUP at the youngest possible age. So I'm going to go back now just to horse as well. Okay, so in terms of how that BLUP calculation works, you can kind of see how it works. You know, you can work out how many aging points you're going to need per year. You know, if your horse is just incrementing by 2 months, you're still going to just need 6 aging points per year. If you're using a Y, you're still going to need 12. So I don't think it'll have as much of an impact maybe as I was expecting. I think it is going to mean that people are going to have to change a little bit. Now, in terms of the calculation of foal's genetic potential, that is something that I didn't go into testing. Mainly because some of the results that I ended up seeing later on from people were saying it's not really that significant, it's not really that big of a change, and it's something that I thought there's no point in me going and test this on pre-pod in case they tweak it from the feedback that they've got. So at this stage it's not something I've tested, and also the other problems are with it as well is if you're at a lower genetic potential you get bigger gains. You're not having such a massive problem with the lowering of the gains as you get to be in that area with the top horses, and you've also got the randomization factor as well. So I can't tell you definitely in any kind of shape or form right now what exactly you're going to get with every single foal, because there's no way to do that. So at the moment it's not something that I wanted to cover. I kind of wanted to explain how the BLUP calculation has changed first, and then I think once it has been implemented as it has been today, I think collectively it's better that different people test it themselves, because I think with the changes to the genetics it's so dependent on, I think, what level you're working with, because I couldn't test it on pre-pod really because I haven't any horses that were top, because I'm using the international pre-pod and I don't have any high GP horses on there. All of my horses are very, very old, from like the 2010. They're very, very far back in genetic potential on there because I don't play on it like I would do on Howrse UK. So had I had pre-pod on my UK server account, I probably would have done it. But that's kind of why I don't think it's going to be it's going to have a massive implication so much on the genetics of the foals at this stage. Now I could be completely wrong, but from what I have read from other people's feedback on pre-pod and that, people don't seem to think it's going to hit them too hard. It's more a case of people are going to have to adjust perhaps they're blupping a little bit more. Some people I don't expect to see, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact so much on people who are blupping at much higher levels. I think for the people who were doing what some people were calling micro blups and things like that, blupping very low, 30 to 40 blup and then breathing and then doing that again, I think they are probably going to see more of an impact possibly on their foals. But it remains to be seen. But I wanted to kind of cover that and give you a rough idea kind of what's changed and how that might affect you. So I hope this video has been helpful. Thank you to Fluffy Bandit for requesting the video. If you have any further information to share or anything like that, I'd be very appreciative of it, and I'm sure everybody else would be as well. So I hope you have a lovely day, friends. Bye!